14 weeks. That's how long my wife of 18 years was pregnant with her sister's baby before I discovered the truth. 14 weeks of hormone injections, doctor's appointments, ultrasounds and contract negotiations, all happening in secret while I made her tea for her perimenopause symptoms. She thought I was predictable, controllable, easy to deceive. What she didn't know was that I'm a professional risk analyst. I detect fraud for a living. And when I finally uncovered her betrayal, I didn't just expose it. I weaponized every legal, financial, and family leverage point. I had to make sure everyone involved paid a price they'd never forget. This isn't just a story about a secret surrogate pregnancy. It's about what happens when the safe husband stops playing by the rules everyone expected. Viewers, if your spouse made a life-altering decision about their body and your marriage without telling you, what would you do? Let me know below. Please, before you continue, don't forget to subscribe, like and watch till the ending to share the story. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent the last 23 years of my life calculating risk for a mid-sized insurance firm here in Portland, Oregon. Every day, I analyze patterns, predict human behavior in crisis situations, assess the probability of betrayal in business contracts. I'm good at what I do, great actually. I can spot a fraudulent claim from 3 pages away, sense when someone's hiding something in their body language during depositions. My colleagues call me the detector because nothing gets past me at work. Nothing. But somehow, I missed everything happening in my own home. I met Emma when we were 17, both of us awkward juniors at Franklin High School. She was the girl who always had paint under her fingernails, who sketched in the margins of her math homework, who saw the world in colors and textures I couldn't begin to understand. I was the kid with the calculator watch, the one who tutored classmates in statistics for beer money, who planned out his entire life on spreadsheets. We shouldn't have worked, but we did. She made me see beauty in chaos. I gave her stability when her artistic dreams felt too fragile to sustain her. We got married at 23, had our first kid at 25, and built what I thought was an unshakable life together. 18 years of marriage. 2 teenage children. A mortgage we were actually ahead on. Weekend hikes in Forest Park. Tuesday night dinners where we actually talked. I thought I knew every version of my wife. The young dreamer, the exhausted new mother, the woman who gave up her gallery aspirations to teach elementary school art because the pay was steadier and the hours worked with our kids' schedules. I thought I knew her completely. I was catastrophically wrong. It started 3 months ago on a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were always our slow mornings. The kids caught early buses and Emma didn't have to be at school until 9. We'd usually sit together over coffee talking about nothing important. Small intimacies that 18 years of marriage afford you. But that Tuesday, Emma bolted from the table halfway through her first sip, hand clamped over her mouth, and barely made it to the bathroom. I stood outside the door, concerned, listening to her retch. When she emerged, pale and shaking, she waved off my worry with a weak smile. "Must be something I ate," she said, but her hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, lingering there for just a moment too long. It happened again the next morning. And the next. I started noticing other things too, the way she'd fall asleep on the couch by 7:30, how she'd suddenly developed an aversion to coffee, her favorite morning ritual. She'd stare at nothing for long stretches, her expression distant, like she was calculating something complex in her head. "Maybe it's perimenopause," she offered when I pressed her after the second week. "My mom went through it early, remember? Started at 43. I accepted this explanation because I'm ashamed to admit I wanted to. Work was demanding, we'd just taken on a massive client, and I was working 60-hour weeks. It was easier to believe the simple answer than to dig deeper. That's what I tell myself now anyway. What I didn't know, what Emma had buried deep for nearly 2 decades, was that she'd always felt like the failure sister. Claire, 3 years younger, had become a pediatric surgeon. She lived in a smart home in Lake Oswego with heated bathroom floors and a wine cellar that cost more than our first car. Meanwhile, Emma taught watercolors to 3rd graders and hadn't touched a canvas of her own in 7 years. 2 weeks after the symptoms started, Emma nearly fainted while supervising recess. The school nurse called me, concerned, and I drove straight there. Emma was sitting in the nurse's office, color returning to her cheeks, insisting she was fine. But I saw fear flicker across her face when the nurse suggested she see a doctor immediately. "I'll make an appointment," Emma promised. "Tomorrow." She did make the appointment, but when the day came, she insisted on going alone. "It's probably nothing," she said, kissing my cheek as she grabbed her keys. "Don't waste your PTO on my vitamin deficiency or whatever this turns out to be." Something in my gut twisted. That same instinct that catches insurance fraud, that senses when claimants are rehearsing their stories. I told her I had a meeting anyway, watched her drive off, then got in my own car and followed her. I felt ridiculous. Like some paranoid character from a thriller movie, parking 3 spaces back in the medical plaza lot, slouching in my seat. I watched Emma walk into the building, her gait purposeful, not like someone dreading bad news. She didn't go to the 2nd floor where her general practitioner's office was located. She went to the 3rd floor. The obstetrics wing. My heart stopped. Pregnant? At 45? We'd been careful. I'd been careful. Our youngest was 14. We just started talking about what we'd do when both kids left for college, maybe travel more, reclaim our lives as a couple instead of just parents. I sat in that parking lot for 90 agonizing minutes, my mind racing through impossible scenarios. When Emma finally emerged, she was smiling. Not relieved, triumphant. She stood by her car making a phone call, animated in a way I hadn't seen in years, gesturing with her free hand, laughing at something the other person said. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. That night, I waited until Emma fell asleep. I'd never violated her privacy before, never felt the need to. But my hands were shaking as I carefully lifted her phone from the nightstand, using her thumbprint to unlock it while she slept peacefully beside me. I felt dirty doing it. Felt like I was betraying everything we'd built. But that feeling evaporated the moment I found the hidden folder labeled Art Project Files. Inside were documents that rewrote my entire reality. A surrogacy contract between Emma Mercer and Claire Davidson, Emma's sister. Medical records from a fertility clinic. Email chains discussing embryo transfer procedures, hormone injection schedules, payment terms. Venmo transactions from Marcus, Claire's husband, $15,000 already transferred, with $35,000 more promised upon successful delivery. My wife wasn't pregnant with our child. She was carrying my sister-in-law's baby. And she'd hidden it from me for 4 months. I sat in the darkness, the phone's blue light illuminating my face, reading through their text messages. Claire's messages were manipulative masterpieces, praising Emma for being such a natural mother, while mentioning how her own body had failed her 3 times. Emma's responses showed a woman desperate to feel needed, important, capable of fixing something that mattered. Then I found Emma's private notebook entries, photographed and stored in the same folder. Finally, pay off credit cards. Bathroom renovation. Maybe, finally, rent that studio space downtown. Do something that matters. Help Claire have what she's always wanted. Be the sister she needs. She was selling her body, our marriage, our life together for $50,000 and her younger sister's approval. The woman I'd loved for 30 years had made a decision that would fundamentally alter our existence, and she'd decided I didn't deserve to know. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next 3. I just lay beside Emma in the darkness, watching this stranger who wore my wife's face, and I calculated. Risk analysts don't react emotionally, we gather data, assess patterns, plan contingencies. For 2 weeks, I played the role of concerned husband perfectly. I made her ginger tea for the nausea. I rubbed her feet when she complained about swelling. I asked gentle questions about her doctor's appointments, watching her construct elaborate lies about hormone levels and perimenopause treatments. She was good at lying, I realized. Maybe she'd always been good at it and I just never had reason to notice. While I played supportive husband, I was building my case. I pulled our financial records going back 8 months and found that Emma had opened a separate checking account I knew nothing about. Small withdrawals from our joint account, $200 here, $400 there. Money I'd assumed was for groceries or the kids' school supplies. She'd funneled nearly $6,000 into her private account before Claire's payments even started. I hired a private investigator, something I never imagined I'd do. His name was Ron, a former cop who specialized in domestic cases. I needed to know if this went deeper than surrogacy. Was Emma having an affair with Marcus? Had this pregnancy happened the old-fashioned way? What Ron discovered was somehow worse. Emma and Claire had been meeting secretly for years. Lunches during Emma's school breaks, weekend yoga retreats, that were actually trips to Lake Oswego. Claire had been grooming her older sister, making her feel simultaneously inadequate and essential, the only person who could give Claire what she desperately wanted. And Marcus had insisted on keeping me in the dark. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. I chose Café Nell for the ambush because it was Claire's favorite restaurant, the kind of place where entrees cost $40 and the wine list requires a sommelier. Emma thought we were just having a family dinner, a chance to catch up. She'd been nervous all day, applying makeup 3 times, changing outfits twice. I realized she was nervous about hiding her pregnancy symptoms in front of her sister, the irony bitter in my mouth. Claire and Marcus arrived 15 minutes late, dressed like they'd just left a yacht club. Claire hugged Emma and I watched my wife's body language, the slight stiffness, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She was already drowning in the lie. We ordered wine, made small talk about Marcus's latest tech project, Claire's hospital politics. Then I set down my glass and smiled at Emma. So, honey, I've been thinking. We should tell everyone your exciting news. The color drained from Emma's face. Claire's fork froze halfway to her mouth, suspended in midair like time had stopped. Marcus, oblivious, looked between us with polite confusion. What news? He asked. Oh, didn't Emma tell you? She's been feeling under the weather lately. I finally convinced her to see a doctor. I paused, letting the silence expand. Turns out it's nothing serious. Just some vitamin deficiencies. Maybe stress from work. I watched Emma's shoulders drop with relief. But I wasn't finished. Though it's funny, I continued, my voice casual, conversational, the doctor's office called yesterday. Something about needing Emma to come back for a follow-up on her obstetrics appointment. I must have misheard though. We're not exactly in the baby-making stage of life anymore, right, honey? 3 faces, 3 different expressions of panic. We left the restaurant in separate cars. Claire called Emma 17 times during our 20-minute drive home. I counted each buzz of Emma's phone in the cup holder between us. Emma stared straight ahead, tears streaming silently down her face, not answering. When we got home, she finally broke. The words poured out of her like a confession she'd been holding back for months, maybe years. I did it for us, Daniel. For our family. Do you have any idea how much debt we're drowning in? Do you remember 3 years ago when you were laid off for 4 months? We almost lost this house. We had to borrow money from your parents. I watched you spiral into depression and I couldn't fix it. I couldn't fix anything. Her words hit me like physical blows because she was right. I had been laid off. We had nearly lost everything. I'd spent 4 months sending out resumes, getting rejection after rejection, watching our savings evaporate. Emma had held us together during that time, taking on extra tutoring jobs, selling things online, never once complaining. Claire offered me a solution, Emma continued, her voice breaking. $50,000, Daniel. That's Nathan's first year of college. That's finally fixing the kitchen cabinets that have been falling apart for 6 years. That's security. That's breathing room. That's not lying awake at 3 a.m. calculating whether we can afford both kids' extracurriculars. So you sold your womb to your sister, I said, my voice flat, emotionless. Without telling your husband. Without even discussing it. I knew you'd react exactly like this. Emma shouted, standing up, her hands clenched into fists. You'd make it some big moral issue, involve lawyers, turn it into something complicated and ugly. You always do that, Daniel. Whenever something doesn't fit your perfect risk assessment, your neat little calculations, you shut it down. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. I could have divorced her that night. Oregon is a no-fault state, but any lawyer worth their retainer could have buried Emma in paperwork. Adultery, emotional abandonment, financial deception. I could have walked away, split everything 50-50, and started over at 47 with my dignity intact. But I'm a risk analyst. I think bigger than immediate emotional reactions. I spent the next week making calls, gathering information, building my strategy. First, I contacted a family law attorney named Sarah Chin who specialized in surrogacy contracts. She listened to my story, reviewed the documents I'd photographed from Emma's phone, and delivered the verdict I'd hoped for. In Oregon, surrogacy contracts require the spouse's signature if the surrogate is married, Sarah explained. Your wife forged your signature on the consent forms. Claire and Marcus witnessed false documents. That's fraud. That's a felony. Second, I reached out to Marcus's company, not to his boss directly, but to their HR compliance department. I submitted an anonymous ethics complaint about a senior executive using company resources, specifically his work email, to arrange a legally questionable surrogacy contract involving a married woman whose husband hadn't provided consent. Third, I filed a formal complaint with the surrogacy agency that had facilitated the arrangement. They'd failed to properly verify Emma's marital consent. That's a liability issue that could cost them their license. But my masterpiece was calling Emma's father, Robert. He was a retired family court judge, a man who'd spent 40 years upholding the sanctity of marriage and family law. I invited him to lunch at his favorite diner and laid everything out with documentation. The forged signatures, the secret meetings, the systematic deception. I watched a man who'd loved me like a son for 18 years transform into the judge he'd once been, his face hardening with each page he reviewed. Robert's phone call to Claire lasted exactly 4 minutes. I don't know what he said, but 30 minutes later Emma received a text. Family meeting. My house. Tomorrow. Everyone will be there. This is not optional. The next evening, 6 of us sat around Robert and Diane's formal dining room table. Emma and me, Claire and Marcus, Emma's parents at the heads of the table. No food, just water glasses and the heavy weight of judgment. Robert didn't waste time. He laid out the legal implications like he was still on the bench, his voice measured and cold. Fraud. Forgery. Breach of contract. The surrogacy agency could sue both Emma and Claire for misrepresentation. Marcus's company is already investigating him for ethics violations. Daniel could press criminal charges. Diane, who'd hosted our wedding, who'd held our babies in the hospital, looked at Emma with tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to your marriage? To Daniel? To this family? Emma tried to defend herself, her voice breaking. I just wanted to help Claire. She'd lost 3 babies. 3. I watched my sister fall apart and I could fix it. I could give her what her own body couldn't. You manipulated her, I interrupted, looking directly at Claire. For years. Made her feel inadequate. Made her feel like this was her only path to significance. You didn't ask your sister for help, you groomed her. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. We're done here. Claire, we're leaving. Sit down, Robert commanded, and Marcus, a man who negotiated million-dollar tech deals, sat down immediately. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Here's what's going to happen. Emma gave birth to a healthy baby girl 6 weeks ago. Claire and Marcus named her Sophia. I was in the delivery room because the new contract required a witness, someone to ensure everything was done ethically, legally, with full transparency. Watching Emma hand that infant to Claire was one of the most complicated moments of my life. Relief and grief mixed on Emma's face. Claire sobbed. Marcus actually thanked me for making things right. The terms I demanded were simple and non-negotiable. Claire and Marcus established a $100,000 trust fund for our children's education. Double what they'd originally promised Emma. They attended 6 months of family therapy with Emma, sessions where a licensed therapist finally made Claire confront her manipulation. Marcus told his company the truth before their investigation concluded. He kept his job, barely, but he's been passed over for promotion twice now. Emma donated her $50,000 payment to a women's shelter. Her choice. Her penance, maybe. Emma and I are still in counseling every Thursday evening. Some days are good. We laugh over dinner, hold hands during movies, remember why we fell in love at 17. Other days I look at her and see a stranger who lied to my face for 4 months, who made a decision that fundamentally altered our existence without me. I've learned things about myself too, uncomfortable truths that therapy has forced me to acknowledge. How my practicality became control. How my risk aversion meant Emma never felt she could take chances or dream. How 18 years of being the responsible one made me rigid, unyielding, impossible to approach with anything that didn't fit my calculations. This morning, Emma showed me a text from Claire. She's pregnant again naturally somehow. She's asking if Emma would be willing to be listed as an emergency guardian. Emma looked at me waiting. What do you think? I took her hand. Let's talk about it. Together. Like we should have from the beginning. Some patterns you can predict. Others keep surprising you no matter how good you think you are at reading them. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like and share for more interesting story.